Okay, so today we're going to jump into the world of Rich Paul,
Rich Paul, yeah.
a name that you probably know if you follow the NBA or any sort of like sports news.
I mean, if you follow sports at all, he's kind of a giant in the industry right now.
Absolutely. So he's become this like really powerful figure in sports management. And for this deep dive, we've actually got a bunch of different sources we're going to be pulling from. We've got articles from LinkedIn News, The Atlantic, Publicist Paper, even some CBS News, some Yellow Brick, and even like little snippets from YouTube's guidelines. So
Yeah, it's interesting how many different places this guy has popped up in sort of the public conversation. So
yeah,
it speaks to his reach.
yeah. And what we're hoping to do today is sort of unpack like what are the key elements to his success and what are the lessons we can maybe even learn from from his journey and his experiences.
I think that's a great goal. I mean, this is somebody who started, in a pretty tough place and has become incredibly successful. So there are absolutely lessons to be learned.
Yeah. So let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. He was born in 1981 in Cleveland.
Cleveland, Ohio, yeah.
And the sources paint a picture of kind of a tough environment growing up.
Definitely not the easiest place to be a kid in the 80s. I mean, they talk about poverty, a lot of gun violence. His
Yeah.
mother struggled with addiction, so he definitely had some significant hurdles to overcome.
Yeah. But despite all that, it seems like his father was a real anchor for him.
Yeah, his dad ran this little corner store called R&J Confectionery.
Okay.
And this little store, I mean, it became kind of Rich Paul's first business school, right? He's
Yeah.
learning about how to deal with people, how to manage tough times.
Right.
He's even observing the gambling that was happening in the back. So,
Wow.
I mean, even at a young age, he's getting exposed to risk and reward and how to handle different personalities. And
Yeah, I mean, talk about like real world experience, right? Like
that's
that's
absolutely more than a textbook could ever teach you.
yeah. And even outside of the store, he's doing things like ironing clothes. He's getting involved in these dice games. So
That entrepreneurial spirit was there early on.
oh yeah.
I mean, think about it, even with the dice games, right? He's learning about risk. He's figuring out how to get those small advantages, how to keep people engaged even when he's winning. So
Wow, that's
a lot of the skills that you need later in life in the business world, he's already starting to develop.
yeah. And so his father actually sends him to Catholic high school,
Mm-hmm.
which you can imagine was a very different environment from where.
Absolutely. A huge shift culturally and academically.
Yeah. And then in 1999, his father passes away.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. Losing a parent at that age. I mean, you're still figuring things out.
Right.
And that loss, it really seemed to accelerate Rich Paul's drive to make something of himself.
And this is when we see him sort of like take that first step,
Yeah.
into what will become his career. He starts selling these rare sports jerseys out of the trunk of his car.
It's funny how these seemingly small beginnings can turn into something huge, right? Like
Yeah.
he's not in a fancy office, he's not working for a big company, he's out there hustling.
Yeah.
And that hustle, it takes him right to a fateful meeting with LeBron James.
I mean, this is like the turning point, right? It's 2002. He's at the Akron Canton Airport,
Of all places.
of all places, and he's wearing a Warren Moon throwback jersey.
And LeBron James spots him and they strike up a conversation.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
Right. And it's not just about the jersey, they connect on a deeper level. They both come from similar backgrounds, they share certain values, they just click.
And at this point, it's not even a business relationship, right?
Yeah.
LeBron is just drawn to Rich's knowledge of jerseys. He
Yeah.
wants to learn more about these rare finds.
He kind of was like, hey, this guy knows his stuff.
Exactly. And that genuine connection, that shared passion, it lays the groundwork for something way bigger than either of them could have imagined.
That's so important for people to remember. Sometimes the biggest opportunities come from the most unexpected places, and it often starts with a genuine connection with somebody.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
fast forward a bit, and Rich becomes part of LeBron's inner circle, and he starts working under this established agent, Leon Rose.
This is where he really starts to learn the ropes of the sports representation business, right? He's seeing how deals are made, how you navigate relationships with teams, with the media.
Right. And there's this interesting detail from some sources that LeBron was actually paying Rich $50,000 a year as a personal assistant.
Wow, $50,000 a year.
Yeah. Just to give him that firsthand business experience, like to be in the room, to observe, to learn.
That's incredible. I mean, that speaks to the level of trust and belief LeBron already had in Rich Paul's potential.
Yeah. And then in 2012, Rich takes the leap and he founds Klutch Sports Group. And his first client, of course, is LeBron James.
Huge move, right? I mean, he's striking out on his own, he's betting on himself, and he's got the biggest name in basketball backing him.
Absolutely. And the sources consistently call this a game changer, and it's hard to argue with that. I mean, what kind of message did that send to the rest of the industry?
Oh, it sent shockwaves for sure. I mean, here comes this young guy who's not afraid to shake things up, and he's already representing the biggest star in the league.
And from there, the growth of Klutch Sports Group is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly they rise to the top. They start representing more and more NBA stars, Anthony Davis, Draymond Green, Ben Simmons, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, eventually representing like over 200 athletes across 4 different sports. It's
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, he negotiated over $4 billion in contracts. That's just mind-boggling.
And they don't stop there, right? Klutch starts moving into areas beyond just the traditional agent roles, like producing original content.
Smart move, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're recognizing that athletes are more than just players. They're brands, they're influencers, and they need to control their own narratives.
Yeah, and that tie-up with United Talent Agency, that was a big signal that they were serious about this whole content game.
Oh, absolutely. They're connecting with Hollywood. They're building a bigger platform for their clients. It's a whole new level.
And then we see them expanding into the NFL, representing players like Chase Young. It's like they're saying, hey, we can do this in any sport.
They're not afraid to branch out. They're confident in their model, and they're showing that they can be successful beyond just basketball.
Yeah, and maybe most importantly, Rich Paul has played a really key role in shaping this whole idea of athlete empowerment, right? He's encouraging athletes to take control of their careers, to use their voices.
He's definitely a champion for athletes' rights. He wants them to have a seat at the table, to be involved in the decision-making process, not just be pawns in the game.
Right, and that brings us to some of his like key negotiations and inevitably some of the controversies that have come along the way.
Yeah, I mean, when you're making big moves, there's always going to be some pushback.
For sure. So one of the early ones that the sources highlight is the negotiation of Eric Bledsoe's contract with the Phoenix Suns. They reportedly like more than doubled the initial offer.
Talk about a power move, right?
Yeah, I mean, that must have sent a huge message to potential clients like, hey, this is the guy who can get you paid.
Oh, absolutely. And it also put the league on notice that Rich Paul wasn't afraid to play hardball.
Yeah, but the Anthony Davis trade to the Lakers in 2019, this is really seen as a turning point, maybe even a controversial one.
Yeah, that was a wild one.
So Davis still had like 2.5 years left on his contract, but Rich Paul orchestrated this whole move to get him to the Lakers, and it caused this huge debate about agent, power, player, the creation of super teams.
I mean, he basically changed the landscape of the NBA with that one move.
Yeah, and regardless of whether you agree with how it all went down, it solidified Rich Paul's position as like this major power broker in the league.
There's no doubt about that. He showed that he was willing to push the boundaries, to do whatever it took to get his client where he wanted to be.
And then you have LeBron's own moves right back to Cleveland, then to Los Angeles, all negotiated by Rich Paul, reportedly netting LeBron $400 million and contributing to 2 more championships.
I mean, that's just incredible to be able to guide the career of arguably the greatest basketball player of all time.
Yeah, it's like a masterclass in career management. And these negotiations, they highlight Rich Paul's ability to not just secure huge contracts, but to understand the bigger picture, like LeBron's legacy, his desire to win championships.
He's not just thinking about the next paycheck, he's thinking about the long game, and that's what sets him apart.
So let's dive into like his core approach,
Right.
What's his business philosophy? What makes him tick?
One of the things that consistently comes up in the sources is his emphasis on building strong relationships with his clients, like really genuine, trusting relationships.
Yeah, it seems like transparency and open communication are like his non-negotiables.
Yeah, he wants his clients to feel like they're in the loop, that they're part of the process. He's not just dictating terms, he's collaborating with them.
And he really understands the power of branding, right? He's helping his clients create opportunities that go way beyond the basketball court.
Oh, absolutely. He knows that in today's world, athletes are more than just athletes. They're brands, they're influencers, and they need to be building their platform.
And there's this real emphasis on giving athletes a voice, right? Like helping them navigate this often complex and confusing world of professional sports.
Yeah, he wants them to be empowered to understand their options, to make informed decisions about their careers.
Which is interesting because his own journey started in a pretty unconventional way, right? Selling those vintage jerseys out of his car.
It's a great reminder that there's no one right path to success, right? He didn't come from a traditional background. He didn't go to some fancy sports management school. He just hustled and built his way up.
Exactly. And he seems to have this really good understanding of his own strengths, like recruiting talent, taking care of his clients on a personal level, thinking strategically about their careers.
And he's smart enough to know what he's not good at, right?
Yeah.
He builds a strong team around him to handle those things like contract details, legal stuff. He brings in people like Mark Termini, the attorney, to make sure everything is buttoned up.
That's such a valuable lesson for anyone, right? To know your strengths and to surround yourself with people who can fill in the gaps.
Absolutely. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Exactly. And the sources also talk about how he's not afraid to go against the grain, to challenge the established way of doing things.
Yeah, he's not afraid to make waves. The Anthony Davis trade is a perfect example of that he was willing to ruffle some feathers to make a big move.
And that willingness to disrupt, to think differently, that's often what leads to those breakthrough moments, right?
Absolutely. Sometimes you got to break the rules to make real progress.
Yeah. And he's talked about how he learned a lot about people and character from his experiences growing up. And he uses those lessons in the boardroom.
I mean, think about it. He came up in a tough environment. He had to learn how to read people, how to negotiate, how to survive. And those skills translate surprisingly well to the business world.
Yeah. Street smarts can be just as valuable as book smarts sometimes.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the Rich Paul rule. This was in 2019. The NCAA introduced these new regulations for agents requiring a college degree MBPA certification for 3 years and passing an in-person exam.
Yeah, this was a pretty controversial move. A lot of people saw it as a direct attempt to target Rich Paul specifically because he didn't have a college degree.
And the backlash was pretty swift, right? Not just from the public, but from NBA players themselves.
Yeah, the players were like, hey, this is our guy. We trust him. He's got our backs.
And eventually, the NCAA backed down and revoked the rule.
Which is a testament to Rich Paul's influence, right? I mean, he basically took on the NCAA and won.
Yeah, it's a pretty big win, and it really highlights how the landscape of sports representation is changing. Like these traditional barriers are starting to crumble.
Absolutely. Experience and results are speaking louder than ever before.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about his financial success as of 2025. His estimated net worth is around $120 million, with annual earnings of over $30 million just from agent commissions.
That's a lot of zeros.
Yeah, and it's a clear reflection of the value he brings to his clients and the success he's achieved as an agent.
He's at the top of his game, no doubt about it.
And he's also been smart with his money, building a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio, including properties in Beverly Grove, Fairfax, and Beverly Hills.
Yeah, he's diversifying his assets, making smart investments.
And of course, there's the mega mansion he reportedly purchased with Adele.
Oh, yeah, can't forget about that.
That's made some headlines. His personal life has definitely gotten a lot of attention, especially since he started dating Adele.
Yeah, it comes with the territory when you're at that level of success and you're dating a global superstar.
So looking ahead, the sources suggest that Klutch Sports Group is going to continue to expand, potentially even into other professional leagues.
Makes sense. They've got the model, they've got the track record, they're ready to take on the world.
Yeah, and there's even talk of potential moves into sports broadcasting, maybe even NBA team ownership down the line.
Wow, that'd be something to see Rich Paul as an NBA owner.
Right, and maybe some strategic investments in tech and entertainment. And it seems like he's really building a diverse and far-reaching empire.
He's not just an agent anymore. He's a businessman. He's an influencer. He's a force to be reckoned with.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive into Rich Paul's world, what are some of the key takeaways for you?
Well, one thing that really stands out is how he turned adversity into fuel, right?
Yeah, he's spoken about how his tough upbringing instilled this fire in him, this drive to succeed.
And it's a reminder that sometimes the greatest challenges can lead to the greatest triumphs.
Absolutely. And the importance of relationships, right?
Oh, huge. His network is his net worth. He's always saying that.
Yeah, and his relationship with LeBron James, that was the foundation for everything that followed.
It shows you the power of genuine connections and how they can open doors you never even knew existed.
And we've touched on this, but it's worth repeating. There's no one right path to success.
Right. No blueprint. You got to forge your own path.
Exactly. And Rich Paul started selling jerseys out of his car. I mean, that's about as far from the traditional route as you can get.
And look where he is now. It's inspiring, right?
Yeah. And the importance of knowing your strengths and building a team around you to handle the things you're not as good at.
Delegation is key. You can't do it all yourself. You got to surround yourself with talented people who can complement your skills.
And not being afraid to challenge the status quo.
Yeah, sometimes you got to break the mold to make real progress.
The Anthony Davis trade is a perfect example of that.
Exactly. He wasn't afraid to ruffle some feathers to get what he wanted for his client.
And the value of understanding people and character.
Right. Oh, that's huge. Especially in a business like this where relationships are everything.
Yeah. And Rich Paul credits his street smarts, his ability to read people, to his experiences growing up.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most valuable lessons are learned outside of the classroom.
And finally, this idea of perseverance, right?
Never give up.
Yeah. He said that he starts each day knowing that there might be more no's than yeses, but he focuses on building on those yeses.
It's about having that resilience, that grit to keep going even when things get tough.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Rich Paul's journey, it really makes you think about your own life.
It
Right?
does.
Like, considering how he was able to spot and leverage these key opportunities, what seemingly small interactions or unexpected challenges in your own life might hold the key to your future success.
That's a great question to ponder. And speaking of individuals who took a unique vision and built a lasting legacy, I think it's a perfect segue into our next deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be exploring the incredible journey of Madam C.J. Walker,
Amazing.
a woman who overcame incredible odds to build a groundbreaking beauty empire and empower a generation.
I can't wait.
You won't want to miss it. We'll be unpacking how she navigated her own set of challenges and created something truly extraordinary that continues to inspire today.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. Me too.
Okay.
See you then.
See you.